Hey, welcome to the 24/7 Marriage Podcast. I'm Shannon,
And I am Javier.
and we are the founders of 24/7 Marriage.
Yeah, we are your marriage flippers, and we're here to flip your marriage.
Wow, just railroad right over my introduction.
No, can you do it again?
No, I don't want to do it again.
I didn't railroad it.
Now I
You're
forgot
done.
what I was going to say.
You
No, I
said
wasn't
founders,
done.
and I said marriage
And I said
flippers.
the founders of 24/7 Marriage and the Marriage Lab, and then you decided to
And your marriage flippers.
and your ADD kicked in, and
yeah,
you lost all train of thought and just went with it.
Sorry.
So, Javier, it's March. First of all, can we just ask the question that I think everybody's thinking? Where the heck is this year already going? Like, how I feel
Some
like
people are already thinking that. I wasn't thinking that.
I am, because
Oh.
I felt like we just had Christmas.
I
We
know.
just had Christmas.
I know.
And is this something that happens to old people? Like the days and the years go
Who
by
are you
faster.
calling old?
We are old, Javier. Look at us.
I just had a birthday not that long ago, so yeah, maybe.
Okay, combined, we're 103 years old.
It's a lot of wisdom. It's a whole lot of wisdom that we have to offer. That's all I know about that. So listen, we're
It's something, that's for sure.
one of the things we love to do is we're always excited about what's up and coming.
Javi,
And
stop scratching yourself.
my shoulder itches, and we've talked about it, but our community is being released, and so you'll hear more about that. Maybe we can talk about that at the end here. But also, we're going to be expanding and doing some more work, and you'll hear us promoting some other podcasts as well. But our friends Dave and Ashley Willis, we haven't talked about them. They have a new podcast called Marriage on the Line, which I love, and it's one of the things that we're going to start doing as well, as being able to have a caller call in, taking your calls, and you can right now leave an audio recording. Like, go on your phone, record an audio, and then just send it via email to info@247marriage.org, and we'll take your call on the air, on the podcast. We'll play your question, a question from a listener, and we'll answer those questions, and it could become our topic pretty much made for that day.
Yeah.
So you can do that even now. So some exciting things coming there, which I think will be fun, and community, and Shan's course.
Who put new batteries in you?
Sorry. Okay.
Whoa.
Someone charged my batteries.
Whoa.
Okay.
Let's just bring it. Let's just bring it down a notch. It's just our podcast, hanging with the 24/7 fam.
Yeah.
And you're way up here.
I think this gets released sometime in March, and we had finished a couple events and boot camps and all that, and making our way towards a boot camp 2.0.
Yeah,
which will be fun.
So excited.
Yeah.
I was just going through all of their name badges for 2.0. And their name badge isn't a picture of them. It's their group picture from the boot camp they first attended. And it's just so fun having all these different boot camp couples come together under one roof with new curriculum, new teaching. Part of our teaching team is Ann and Steve, and they teach actually what Ann and Steve teach at the 2.0 wrecked me last boot camp, because it was so powerful. There was 2 things that they taught on, and then this activity that they led. Incredible.
Yeah.
Like the restoration that happened between these couples was so exciting. The thing I love about 2.0 is we don't have to spend time getting to know these couples, because we already know them.
Yeah, we can just make fun of them while they're there, because now we already know them. No, I'm kidding.
Javi, we don't make fun of our couples.
We don't make fun of them.
But because we know them, they've been to a boot camp, we dive right in, and it is a powerful weekend. I'm so excited.
And if you haven't attended a boot camp, listen, there are still boot camps available for this year. Normally they sell out. It's been a little slower this year, to be honest with you. We don't know why that is, but there's some still room in Tennessee, and there's Colorado and Texas. So love to see you at any of those boot camps. Make sure you attend. Honestly, it is one of those things where, why do people come to the 2.0? The 2.0 sold out. I don't know, within...
it sold out in October.
It sold out and we just released it then. It sold out very, very quickly. There's a reason why a 2.0 for people who attended a boot camp already are signing up so quickly to go to a 2.0. That should tell you something.
Yeah.
That it's not about us. It's not about there is, yes, we try to create the experience and the environment and walk alongside you and challenge you and provide the content, but it is about what God does when a couple shows up and is willing to do the work and invest in the most important relationship outside of God in human history that reflects and images in Him, and at the same time speaks to the world around you, to your family, about God's love and His grace and who He is. And with that said, that brings us to our topic. That was a good segue, right?
Oh, yes, Javier. That was a great segue.
We actually
You're
were
getting better
moving
at
in a
them.
different direction in terms of what we have scheduled for podcast, what was already put out there on our scheduler.
But I said something magnificent and it stuck with you.
Well, with this idea, we just talked about it at a workshop at a church, and um, it's this place of understanding. And I think you've heard us say it, and but here's the thing: like, your marriage should not look like what culture says it should be. That it's just for your happiness. It's, like, culture is continuing to try to dismantle the true meaning of marriage. They're trying to hijack it, adulterate it, saying it can be between, the same sex, all these, like, they're trying to hijack what God truly intended for marriage, and trying to get us further and further away, even within the church. Like, you have people who are getting further and further and further away from the actual true meaning of marriage and what God intended for
Well, let's
marriage.
just be really honest, Javier.
Okay, because we were lying
Most
before that.
most Christian marriages look exactly like worldly marriages. The only difference is they occasionally show up to church on Sunday.
They checked the box. That
Sorry,
is
but it
for
is true.
sure.
Um, there's nothing that is different about you. And what the Bible says and what God calls us to is that our life should be a marked difference, that we would be salt and light in a dark world,
Yeah.
that people who spend time with us in our home, across the dinner table, in a small group, they're like, there's something different. We should be differentiated from the world and the world's way of doing marriage, fidelity, morality, all of it. And yet there's so much lines being blurred that there
Yeah.
isn't you can't you okay, let's just say it this way. If you are a Bible believing Christian, you love the Lord and you serve God, if I was to ask one of your neighbors or your friends that are in your small group or uh, the other couple on the soccer team that your kids are on with, and I was to tell them, did you know that the Joneses are a Bible believing Christian? They love the Lord. Had no idea. No, I did not know that about them. So there should be a marked difference in our presence, in the words we speak, how we carry, how we conduct ourselves that speaks to a broken world because we don't believe that your marriage is just a relationship. It's a ministry.
Yeah, and that's exactly what she just said right now. And for some of you, it's going to be hard to process that. I understand. Like, what do you mean? I'm just trying to survive and get through, just trying to figure this thing out. And it doesn't mean it's perfect. It doesn't mean that your marriage, that everything needs to be up and to the right consistently. Shannon is still very imperfect and still struggling with so many
Right.
things consistently. And so ultimately,
Is
like, I get to.
do you think you're a
It's probably
comedian?
me. It's probably me. It's
Do you want
reverse.
a tip jar?
Strike that and reverse it. We don't come from this out of our perfection. We don't come from this out of having it figured out. We do come from a place of understanding. We can talk about on the podcast, at workshops, at boot camps, at everything that we do where we speak. We can talk about, the 5 steps to this and better communication and better sex. And those are all great. And how do I overcome this issue in our marriage? We want to address those things. They're good. But it's also so important that the foundation is there, that we have this foundation, and we talk about it at our boot camps, and at workshops as
Mhm.
well, because we have to we have to keep the foundation strong, and we have to invest into that, and sometimes you have to gird it up. Sometimes you have to strengthen it. Sometimes you have to re-pour some things in the foundation because it's got some cracks in it. But you continue to step. It doesn't mean, like, I've seen houses, right, that had to be the foundation redone because there were some cracks. They did not tear down the entire house, and that's what some of you do. Oh, we're just not. It's just not working. Like, this is not good. This is not good. There's a crack here. Like, I don't know how we can get through this infidelity. I hear you. That's difficult. It's tough. It's painful. But the thing is, like, the house does not need to come down. Does not need to crumble and everything else around it.
Yeah.
Like, those things can be repaired and can be healed to strengthen, and then it impacts everything else above it. And so when
Yeah.
Shannon said that marriage is a ministry, that's what we wanted to talk about because that's what your marriage is. It's actually a ministry that you get to live out, that other people are seeing, experiencing, and they're seeing God in it, experiencing His love, His grace. Not perfect, but it actually is a ministry where you get to love others through your marriage and even through the difficult seasons of
Well,
it.
your marriage is your ministry. It's your mission field, and so is your family.
Yeah.
And I use this analogy in our 10-day reboot for wives because this 10-day reboot is all about powering down and rebooting how we see our marriage. Because when you get a mindset shift of what marriage is supposed to be, then we approach it differently. And so I use this analogy of if I ask you, Javier, to go on a short-term mission trip with me, we're going to go to Africa. We're going to go one of the poorest villages, and we're going to spend several days feeding and clothing the most vulnerable. You'd be like, I'm in. I sign up. We get on the airplane. We fly over there. And you get off the airplane. You walk into the village and you say to me, oh my gosh, what is going on here? Why are these people hungry and have no clothes? What is this? You would never say that to me. You want to know why? Because you knew what you signed up for. I told you, we're going on a mission trip
Yep.
to Africa to serve the most vulnerable. So you already knew what you were signing up for. You wouldn't ask that question when you got there. The same thing applies in marriage. We get into marriage and problems arise. We hit a valley, we hit a boulder,
Yeah.
something comes up, an addiction, a sickness, a problem in our marriage, and we immediately go, what is this? No, you signed up for marriage and your marriage is a mission field. So you were on mission. So how would you approach
Yeah.
that mission?
Yeah.
Well, I need to tackle it in prayer. I need to get in the trenches
Yeah.
with my
Well,
spouse.
anyway, hold on before you go in, because those are the points I think
Yeah.
we want to make sure we're honing in on. So there's a part that I started with, like, your marriage is a ministry to those that are around you, and we'll circle back to that of what they see. Again, not in perfection. Like, we don't do it perfectly, but we try to ensure that our marriage is ministering to other people by reflecting Christ and His love, and they see grace and they see mercy, and our kids see that. That they would say, yeah, so what's going on there? Shan mentioned that. And then the part that you just talked about, which is important, is that how your marriage is a ministry to one another. Like, if you view it that way, it's a mission field and it's a ministry to one another. It should change your perspective because I signed up for this. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard, but this is part of, like, being on that mission field. Like, I don't know what I'm going to eat. I don't know how I'm going to survive this or get through this moment. So, like, how do you practically see it as a ministry, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think there's key things of, like, prioritizing their needs and investing into them. Like, when there's seasons of brokenness and seasons where they're going through, could be sickness, could be a difficulty, a struggle, a past trauma, that you get to minister to them by showing up, by sacrificially giving yourself,
Yeah.
loving them, by looking at their needs above your own.
A mindset shift. You're not caught off guard when things happen.
Yeah.
I know they feel like setbacks, but if this is a mission field, this is what happens on a mission field. There are landmines you don't see. There are explosions going off. There are things that you can get tripped up over. For example, I've had several women that I've coached that are like, my husband's a Bible believing, loves God, strong Christian, and he's fallen prey to pornography. And they're like, how did this happen? What am I supposed to do? I can't believe this is happening to me. And I've had to lift them up and be like, no, 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 no. Your marriage is a ministry. This is your mission field. How do you serve, love, protect him right now because he's down for the count? Your husband got shot. Metaphorically, he's down. So you need to drag him to safety. What you do in the middle of that is how you pray for him, how you get him help, how you help him recover. That's how this is how you recover on the mission field. But so often we turn it inside and think that if they if my spouse says there are these things when we get married, I I'm expecting you to never change, and I'm
Yeah.
expecting you to never have a problem. I'm expecting you to never deal with addiction. I'm expecting you to never get sick.
Yeah.
And it's like, who do we think that we
Well, the
are to
expectation
put those things on each
everything's
other?
good. We're gonna be happy. Like we're not like.
And we're
I
never
don't.
going to experience any
Yeah.
pain or
I don't.
problems.
I don't. I mean, I want to say people don't recognize that they're not signing up for that. That it's going to be everything's going to be just as they hoped and expected and dreamed. And
It's
but
never
there's
going to go
but there
that
are
way.
who we have talked to who are like surprised by what happens or surprised that this could take place. Like, listen, you have an enemy. Like you have an enemy
Yes.
whose main job is to take you out. Like the enemy wants to take you out. He wants to bring this division, disunity, and disruption within your relationship, within your marriage. Because he knows if he can do that, then he can get the husband, he can get the wife, he can get the kids, he goes down the line.
Yeah.
And so recognize that that is what is happening, that there is this attack. So like you just said, instead of why is this happening to me? What's going on? I'm so surprised by this.
What do I
Like
need to do? What action steps do I need to
like
take?
okay, this is hard. This is difficult.
Yeah.
And maybe I didn't see this coming. This is hurtful. But now, how do we move towards one another? How do we find in things, right? If you're going to minister to one another, you're going to offer forgiveness. You're going to give grace. You're going to be able to see the person and not the problem. You're going to be able to begin to move past, right, what's holding you
Yeah.
back to find healing and restoration and to rebuild because like okay how do I now get to do this for them and sometimes it's like but then what about me
I know.
but what about me like and there is a part
You
even
signed up for marriage, and
true
it is a selfless act. You
true
are here to serve one another. It is not so that you can be served. That is the world's version of marriage. This is not a
but the beauty
biblical
of it is
view
when
of
you're
marriage.
serving your spouse and hopefully they desire to be served right that they will serve you in return but some don't because they don't see that they take I understand that. But this part about even if you're in the mission field or you're in ministry, which you all are in ministry, if you're married to one another, is that you do have to care for yourself.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to be okay for the other person.
We're not
Like
saying that
if
you have
they're
to be a
wounded,
doormat.
if they're
Yeah,
down, how do you carry them? How do you help them sustain? How do you pick them up? So there is this part about like serving and ministering to your spouse and showing up and being there, but there's also the other side of it. You have to care for yourself. Every missionary will tell you that typically a lot of them will be there and they'll come back to their home state or country, wherever they're from,
for several months.
for several months. And it's a time. Sometimes it's meeting, it's going to churches, it's speaking, it's raising support. But oftentimes there's sabbatical time built into that to refresh their spirit. A good missionary typically will understand the importance of that. Even a pastor of the church, like I used to take sabbatical, like taking a break, investing in yourself and self care
Yeah,
helps you be a better minister.
yeah.
And so that's the other part of this
Well,
too, is you have to
yeah.
care for
Let
yourself.
me just be vulnerable and share something from our past. At year like 15 or 16, you went through a depression, and we walked through that for couple years of that season, and it was at moments a little debilitating, but I had a clear vision of this mission field and how to serve, love, and still honor and respect you, holding our family together while I helped you heal. And the picture that I want to paint for you is that if there were trenches on the mission field and Javi was down, I was in the trenches with him. I wasn't standing above him with a gun saying, why aren't you better? Why are you doing this to our family? Why can't you get over this? What our family needs you right now. I need you to get back up and I need you to keep running the race. I put down everything and I got in the trenches with you. And so we went through that season and I thought that season wouldn't come back up again, but it did just recently. It's revisited. And I had a moment of like, oh my gosh, again? I was like, not, "Oh my gosh," again, like, "You're such an idiot." I was more like, I really thought that this thing had gotten conquered, that we were, like, over this, and that's just part of life, like, this attack came, and I had to regroup and be like, "Okay, I'm gonna get back in the trenches. I'm gonna do what I need to do to love, serve, and help you heal through this season, because it's a different season. We don't have kids anymore at home, and it looks different. But in the middle of that, I have to care for myself. So I have the women in my life who check in on me, who I can go to and lean on so that I'm still caring for myself. I'm going to say this in the middle of you serving your spouse, when it's very out of maybe it's 90-10, your spouse is going through something really difficult, whether sickness and addiction, and you're pouring out and you're not getting a lot. I want you to know that in several seasons of my life where I was pouring out more than I was getting, I never had an unmet need. I had a roof over my head, I had dinner, I had family, I had good friends, I had a spouse who loved me. He was just in a broken place, but all of my needs were met. Did I get everything I want? Did we have the happiness and the maybe the more exuberant time I was expecting in that season of more date nights and more vacations and just this interaction that you and I had? It was a little bit of a heavy season, but every need I had did not go unmet. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah. 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 And that's the things when you take this, and what we want to do is take this mindset and even step back for a moment right now and look at your spouse. If they're in that same room with you, or maybe you're driving with them right now, or maybe like you're at work and you're listening, whatever it may be. When I say look, like it maybe just like step back and you picture your spouse, or maybe you see them physically, and say, how have I been doing ministering to my spouse? How have I shown up in those moments of hardship, of difficulty, of struggle? What's actually going on? 'Cause if I'm going to minister to them, I'm going to see that what is actually truly happening, not just what I'm seeing on the surface, but what is actually taking place. And how can I love them? Where do I need to actually maybe repent and say I have not been showing up and ministering well to my spouse? I have like made it about me and what I need and what I need to get. And it's a tough thing because we talked about it a couple episodes ago with couples, like they've been navigating something for a long time, and it's like been 2 years past an affair, and like, but she's still doing this or he's still doing that, and still, not trusting, is still reserved. It's like, well, you keep doing the right thing. You keep moving towards them. You keep being responsible for your choices, decisions, your actions, how you love, how you pursue, how you minister to your spouse. And then at the same time, as you are ministering to them, you step back and allow God to do his job, like to do the work. You do yours.
You make a terrible Holy Spirit.
Yeah. So you make a terrible Holy Spirit. So you can't do that part. When we say minister to them, we're not saying you get to change them
Yeah.
and you get to make them do what you want them to do. Like, that's not what we're saying. That's not your role. That's not your job.
You wash their feet.
That is not
Yeah.
your job.
Yeah.
Your job is not to get your spouse to change, to get them to align with what makes things easier for you. Your job to have ownership is of what God is asking of you and how you love, minister, engage, move towards them, pursue them. That is your responsibility, to honor God. And so doing that, that the overflow of that is you honor your spouse and you treat them well. And like, it's difficult. It's difficult. Now, do you work together? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, right? Even in the mission field, like, you got to work together. It's not just solo. You have to be able to work together
Hmm.
and both agree that you're going to do this together. So, how have you been doing in this area? Like, how have you shown up in that way? Like, you want to be ministered to, you want your needs met, you want to be cared
This
for,
is where most people tap out of marriage.
you want these things and
Yeah.
desire these things. But how willing and freely are you willing to give those things, even out of the place where you feel lack, where you're not receiving it, because you're called to, right? Those who go into a mission field are typically feel called.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to engage this indigenous people group and potentially lay their lives on the line to teach them about God or to serve the orphans or whatever it means in a dangerous area. They're not just doing it. Oh, that sounds fun. This will be great. Yeah, I'll go try it out. Like, there's literally this to give of yourself and lay everything down and sacrifice. It's a calling.
Well, and there's something pulling on their heart, their very soul, that they feel compelled that God is calling and moving them in this direction. And if you apply that to marriage, you said, "Yes, I do at the altar to this person." So you're all in. You're all in on what this mission field could look like. Like, you don't get to decide, "This is how I wanna play the game, and this is how I'm gonna set up the board." No, you don't get to do that.
Yeah.
So, it's this all in
Yeah.
mentality.
Well, you're called. When you
Yes.
said yes at the
You're called.
altar, enter into a covenant, you just got called into your marriage. You just got called in to be on mission,
Yeah.
to minister.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you know what's fun about this is that a lot of what we're telling you right now is just getting talked about and unfolded as we're talking to you, and it's good. I'm just telling you, it's good. Um, and so here's what I want. Here's what we want you to hear, because we're gonna wrap this up, and it's probably worthy of more discussion for sure. Um, but sit back for a moment and actually say the words out loud. Out loud. My marriage is a ministry. My marriage is a ministry to my spouse and to those around me. And then that would cause you to ask the questions: how am I doing in that? How am I displaying God in my marriage? How am I honoring my spouse, forgiving, giving grace and mercy?
Yeah.
How am I doing? You want to see things shift in your marriage, start seeing your spouse that way.
Yes.
Of you being called into the mission field of marriage together to serve one another and to minister to one another,
Yes.
to help
Yeah.
heal one another.
To heal. Not that we have of the power that God brings healing, but there's this thing that we get to do for one another, literally like washing each other in the word and being
Yeah.
able to bring that that safe place.
Yeah.
So when you're going through your darkest hour, your safest place should
Yeah.
be with me.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately with God, but your home and us being together should feel like a safe sanctuary for you, to where you're like, I can come undone and my wife's not going to judge me. She's going to fully accept me. I'm fully known, but I'm fully loved.
Yeah.
And that is a radical shift
Yeah.
and love and grace that only a spouse can give to another
Yeah.
spouse.
To minister to your
Yeah,
spouse. Yeah. So
I
I
love
hope
that.
you hear and understand the importance of this podcast, of this episode. Share it with others. Please go and rate, review this
Leave us
podcast.
comments
Leave us comments,
on
but
Spotify,
share
Apple,
this.
and YouTube.
Yeah, because it helps us go up in those algorithm thingies. But it also share it with other people. Have them be part of this, and take advantage of all the things that we have up and coming. Attending a boot camp. Um, uh, coming to a workshop that we may have coming up, jump into our community, which is being launched here, and be a part of that. Invest into your marriage, invest into yourself. You're doing that by listening, and we appreciate that. And remember, we're a partner supported ministry, so please consider being a part of the work that we do. And one of the way you can do that is at $24 a month in our community. You can be part of that, and that goes to help to support this ministry, boot camps and scholarships and resources and content to help you build a thriving marriage as you're in this mission field. So always remember, marriage, you don't have
You
to.
get to.
Have an incredible week, and we'll
Bye,
see you soon.
everyone.
For listening to the 24/7 Marriage Podcast. Help us expand our reach by rating and leaving us a review on iTunes. Make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. For more information on the work we do and how to support the 24/7 Marriage, head on over to 247marriage.org and click on Partner with Us. Until next week, remember, in marriage you don't have to, you get to.